Hello guys, welcome to the session DI for Dummies. And just to give a quick intro about myself, I am Priyank Shankar. That is my Twitter handle, Priyank312002. And obviously you can follow me if you want to. So I would also say that I'm a computer science undergrad student and I have been learning to develop and also developing Android apps for about 3 years now. And I would take the liberty of saying that I know a bit about how to develop Android apps. So, coming back to the topic, dependency injection. So, honestly, I was also scared of this. Like, this is a big name, dependency injection. I thought it is something for the pros or it is something very tough. Like, not exactly, it's not tough. Like, when I learned it, I figured out it's a bit overwhelming. You might think that I do not need dependency injection. Like, what exactly is dependency injection? But no, like, it's not really tough. So, let's get started. So, I don't know why am I saying so very much, but just ignore me. Also, I wanted to cover that if you get to hear some of the background noises, I'm really sorry for that. Like, it's not under my control. And also, I'll be looking into the camera once in a while, looking under the screen then. So, if you find this a bit weird, I also just cannot figure out a way to make this look better. So let's just dive in. Dependency injection or DI. If you ponder upon these two words, you may figure out that somewhere or the other you have to inject a dependency. Now you might ask what a dependency is, how do you inject dependencies, like what exactly is dependency injection? That is the question. And don't worry, we will answer all of these during the next 30 or 40 minutes. So let's just have a look at the formal definition of dependency injection. So dependency injection, I'm just going to read out what's written there so you can read it too. So dependency injection is a technique widely used in programming and it is well suited to Android development. By following the principles of DI, you can lay the foundation or you can lay the groundwork for a good app architecture. Implementing dependency injection provides you with the following advantages: reusability of code, ease of refactoring, and ease of testing. So this was a brief or very broad overview. Dependency injection is not something very specific to Android development. I guess people in backend development also use it, and also I'm not sure if it is used anywhere else. But overall, dependency injection is a technique which can be applied in almost everywhere. Like I would tell you what dependency injection in two words or in one line, but I just want do not want to share it right now because I just want to have you a brief. I wanted to give you a brief understanding of what are the things or what is the exact problem dependency injection is gonna solve. Like why do we need dependency injection? That is the thing. Like many of you would have made a lot of projects and you never had to use dependency injection. I personally myself sometimes I struggle to do some things in my project. I thought dependency injection, I heard that like this is a standard problem and dependency injection solves it. But just because I was scared of dependency injection so much, I always kind of figured out a way, like without using Dagger Hilt or Dagger 2 or without using dependency injection, I was able to somehow achieve what I wanted to. So I just wanted to say that dependency injection is not something like you have to do. Also, like if you have a look at this line, lay the groundwork for a good architecture. There's nothing such as a perfect architecture or a good architecture for your app. It depends entirely on your use case. And like I'll give you a use case. Like for example, you have a really big app and you are gonna roll out a new feature. So most probably, if you're gonna roll out a new feature, you most probably will have a very what do you say, significant part of it previously written in some other feature. If you're not using DI, most probably you will have to write down all of this once again. But if you have architecture which is using which is using dependency injection or DI, most probably you will be able to reuse that code with minimal effort. And that is the thing which dependency injection enables you to do. Also, like it makes very easy for you to test things. I would not go into the deep of it because to be honest, I've not done much of testing, but the thing is that you can provide fake versions of, and say, like fake versions of anything, like fake repositories you can say fake APIs or fake data. You can provide anything fake easily by using dependency injection. Fake or mocks, like you can also put mocks and makes testing easy. I've not done it much, so that is also reason why I'm not able to explain to you in very detail. But I will just, on the Slack channel, I will just give you a link of some of the talks which explain this in very detail. And they're also like, these talks are also very nice. You should go and listen to them. I've not added them in the slide, but for sure I would give you the links of those talks in the Slack itself. And when we talk about refactoring, so like most probably you would have seen the option of refactor the code into like in the file, and that exactly is not it. What just is just replaces or reformat. So many of the time we confuse reformatting with refactoring and vice versa. But what exactly dependency injection wants, what exactly dependency injection helps you with, and what exactly I want you to know in, through the slide was that, for example, right now in my app, I'm using Sentry for logging the crashes. For example, I have a app and I want to log each and every time the app crashes. For example, for a particular user, the app is crashing right now, maybe let's say in the user screen, the main feed, or that let's assume the app which you are talking about is Instagram. For example, for me, Instagram crashes in the main feed section. I want it to be logged. For example, for some other person, it is crashing in the like what is a profile settings section. You want to also log it down. So right now I'm using a provider or a service known as Sentry to log all of these things. But in future, maybe I want to move to Firebase. So if you're not using dependency injection in your app architecture, or you have not planned your app architecture accordingly, most probably it would be very hard for you to change from Sentry to Firebase. Or for example, you used Firebase before and you want to go to Sentry. That would be very hard, because on each and every screen, or you can see each and every place where you have linked to Sentry or Firebase, you would have to go there and then kind of come back to the place. You can say for every come back. I'm not sure come back if it is the right word, but every place where you have Firebase, you would have to change it with Sentry. Or for example, every place if you have Sentry, you would have to change it to Firebase. And that is not the thing with DI. With DI, you would something kind of and have you like at a very core place, you would have Sentry or Firebase in place, and around it you would have a wrapper or kind of abstraction which you would call, let's example, which you call analytics. And every time you want to call anything like or log anything, you would be pointing to that analytics thing. Like I just want you to think in your mind something like of a flowchart, that every place where you're logging, they all are pointing to that abstraction layer which you are calling. What are we calling that abstraction layer? We were calling it, yep, you're calling it analytics. So everywhere, for example, somewhere I'm crashing, like my user screen is crashing. So when it is crashing, I want logging at analytics dot log user screen has crashed. For example, it is crashing in the reels section. I'm logging analytics dot log reels has crashed, something like that. So now when I want to change from Firebase to Sentry or Sentry to Firebase, I just will have to change the core of the analytics from Firebase to Sentry, or from Sentry to Firebase. And overall, at every other place, it would be changed automatically. So that is the ease of refactoring, what means. And like it's kind of magical. I've seen this one, and you will most probably see it. And if you do this is like, according to me, this is the biggest advantage which dependency injection will provide you. Yes, so I would say this slide is done. And coming back to story time, and I was planning to do this talk in, I'm going to say, physical mode itself with all of you in front of my faces. And I was planning to come to Chicago. And when I was trying to have a look at the hotels and the food which Chicago has to offer, I came to know that deep dish pizza is a very famous dish in Chicago. And I had a look at how it's made, what are the spices. So let's just assume you have to make a class whose sole responsibility is to make a deep dish pizza and return it to you. So and I guess you all are familiar with single responsibility principle. It's not a vague, but the principle in layman terms says that each file or each class in your Android app or in your program or in your software should have just one responsibility. So for example, if you have a file named deep dish pizza, the only responsibility or the only thing it should do is to give a deep dish pizza. So I just want all of you to think, or all of you to think of a class. How would a class look? Which just have to, like, the only responsibility of the class is to give you a deep dish pizza. And like my naive approach is to be the like naive approach or the brute force approach, like for all the DSA, like all of my friends which are very interested in DSA, you can call it the brute force approach too. So if you have to jot down a naive approach for the class, for a class which have to make deep dish pizza, it would look something like this. Yeah, ta-da. So this class is very simple, a class named deep dish pizza, and it has a simple function named create deep dish pizza. But what is happening in this function is something you should pay attention to. We are making objects of crushed sauce, cheese, and then we are assembling it, and then we are passing that assembled pizza to baking. Yeah. You might say that it is a bit wrong, like I could have added a return statement in that, yes, but let's just not focus on it. So what exactly are we doing here? To make a deep dish pizza, it's sure that you would at least need a crust, tomato sauce, and cheese. Like that's what I think. And let's just assume that you only need these three things to make a pizza. And then you assemble it and bake it, and tada, your pizza is ready. Pizza is ready, I'm sorry. So there's nothing wrong in this, you would say. Like this class is very valid. For example, anytime a customer walks into your restaurant, your place, you can just call this function and you will have a pizza ready. But you should think more about this. This will lead to some problems, and I'll just show you what problems it could lead to. You can also think like, what problem can this class lead you into? For example, I walk into your I walk into your restaurant and I want a more thinner crust. I do not like thick crust. You just cannot do it. You would have to write a whole new class just to, what do you can say, just to accommodate my one demand, and that's not a very good thing. For every new demand, you would have to create a new class. And just imagine, like when you are considering only these three factors, crust, sauce, and cheese, you have to accommodate like we can have so many combinations. Somebody want a very thin crust with chili sauce and very high amount of cheese, and you can just mix in a lot of things, and you would have to write a lot of code. I'm sorry, a lot of code for that, and that's not really very nice approach, because it's man work. You do not have to repeat all those things at one time. So what could you do? I would tell you the answer. If you use dependency injection, your life would be very easy. But before jumping into the exact solution, let's just take a very standard example. And I'm saying it's standard because it's widely used. And the guys at Google also appreciate this example very much. So I'm just gonna give you that thing too. So this is a very famous example. You can ignore that function main. You can ignore if you want to, you can see if you want to, but I will be focusing on the class car. So the class car is making an object of engine, and then it is starting the engine.start. So like you can say, what's the problem in this? Again, if I want a car with electrical engine, or if, let's say, with V8 engine, or maybe hydrogen engine. I'm not sure if we still have, like, if we have a hydrogen engine, but let's assume I want to test a car having an hydrogen engine. How do I do it? I just cannot. I would have to make a new class. This is the problem. I guess you all will agree with it. But I'll just point out, we also have another problem with it. If we were to follow the single responsibility principle very, what you can say, very religiously, we are not doing that too. In this class, the only responsibility of this class, deep dish pizza, should be to create a pizza. But if you have a very, what you can say, very keen look at it, we are also creating an object of crust, we are creating an object of sauce, we are creating an object of cheese. This should not be done here, like ideally. And I also told you that you do not have the choice of changing it. Like if you want a different variety of pizza, you would have to write a different class, and that's not really something worthful. Similarly, if you want a different variety of engine, you just cannot do it. And also, like engine, like an object of engine, ideally should not be created in class car. And then, like I told you, these many problems. But if I were to sum it, or I were to club it, can call it, the problems are tight coupling and hard dependency. And these two terms, tight coupling and hard dependency, like I do not know how to explain to you, because these terms are very complementary to each other. Like class car is very hardly dependent on engine right now in this code sample which we have, or let's just say code snippet which we have. Without engine you just not create, like without creating an instance of engine you cannot create an instance of car, and also it is very tightly coupled to it. And similarly in this too, without creating an object of crust, tomato sauce and cheese, you just cannot create an object of deep dish pizza. So I guess you have understood all of the problems and the naive approach right now. Also, I would have shared the, what you can say, the slide by now, so you could also have a look at this link. And this is the link to, what you can say, the official documentation for DI by the Android developer developers.android.com. Yeah. So these are the problems. So how do we solve the problems? What do we do? I'm sure you guys know the answer is in the, what you can say, the, sorry, I'm not sure, the answer is in the talk of, in the, I'm sorry, in the title of the talk itself. I do not know why I'm fumbling this much. I usually do not, but it's my first time, so I'm sorry too. And you can always give me all of the feedback in Slack and personal messages on Twitter, anywhere you want. But I would love to hear the feedback from you too. So coming back to the session, we have been distracted for a bit now. So coming back to the session, what is the answer? We use dependency injection to make our life easier. And like, what exactly dependency injection is? Now, like, what exactly dependency injection is? How exactly do we inject a dependency? I guess you all have known what exactly a dependency is. In this snippet, engine is a dependency of car, and in this snippet, the dependency of deep dish pizza, crust, tomato sauce, and cheese. So just wanted to make it clear once again if it was not clear. So what do? We do dependency injection to make our problem easier. And what exactly is dependency injection? Like, it's not exactly, but dependency injection, most of dependency injection is just passing in stuff. And what's passing in stuff? That you pass in a stuff, like what, I'm sorry, you pass in the dependency of that class as a parameter in its constructor. I'm not sure if you understood that, but I will, when I show you, you would say like, it's nothing, man. Why do you call it dependency injection? It's such a simple stuff. We do it so usually. Yep. So we inject that dependency as a parameter in the constructor. So if you have a look at your left side, the class car, instead of making an object of engine itself, we are providing it as a constructor, as a parameter in the constructor itself. Every time you would want to make a car, you would ask like, do you want an electrical engine? Do you want a petrol engine? Do you want a diesel engine? Like, you can accommodate almost any kind of engine in the car itself, and then you can do whatever you want with the car. Do you want to start the engine? Do you want to check if it starts? You want to race it? It's on to you. And similarly with deep dish pizza, now at the very, like, with this code you can create a whole lot of pizzas. You can have pizza which will have a thin crust, a very spicy sauce, and a lot of cheese. And simultaneously, like, this same piece of code will also enable you to make a pizza with a thick crust, a very sweet sauce, and almost no cheese. So I would say that is, like, I would say you have learned dependency injection. That is exactly what dependency injection is. You do not even need to set up anything in Android or any manual DI, or if you have heard about Coin, Dagger 2, Dagger 3, you do not need to set up anything. You have been doing dependency injection all along, because I'm sure you must have passed parameters into functions and classes before. So I would say it's time to celebrate. You just understood what dependency injection is. Just to sum up, dependency injection in a very broad sense, in layman terms, is passing in stuff as a parameter in the constructor of the class. And oh sorry, I did not write it in here, but there are some more stuff to dependency injection. Like, most of dependency injection is passing in stuff, but it is not only passing in stuff. And I've written it down as dependency injection is passing in stuff, but it is not just passing in stuff. There are things like sharing dependencies, scoping dependencies, and I'm not sure how do I tell you to scope dependencies right now. I would jump into the Android Studio to show you, but before jumping into the Android Studio, I would just want to discuss there are many ways. Like right now, we had been talking about dependency injection as a whole, not constraining it to Android development. But when we are talking about dependency injection in Android development itself, so when you're talking about dependency injection in Android development, but right now, and right now onwards, whenever I talk about dependency injection, I'm basically talking about dependency injection in Android development. So when you're talking about dependency injection, there are many like ways which you can use dependency injection in Android. So you can have a manual DI setup, you can use Coin, you can use Dagger 2. And like I would say you can still use Dagger 2. Dagger 2 provides a very, what you can say, large scope of control over project, but we have a better version of Dagger 2 right now, Dagger Hilt, and I really love to use it. You can use Coin, you can use manual setup. These things have their own pros and cons. For example, for setting up manual DI, there's not much you can do, but manual DI, like if your dependencies grow and you need a lot of dependency injection, you're doing dependency injection like almost everywhere in your Android project, and your project is growing at a tremendous pace, most probably you would not want to do DI. And then Coin, like Coin, people say Coin is not true dependency injection, it is kind of a service locator pattern. I would not like to dive in right now because with this session my plan was to give a brief overview about dependency injection and just to show you some code samples about how to use Dagger Hilt. So when you compare Dagger Hilt to Coin, at Coin things are gonna run at runtime, though you have some libraries and stuff to check if something will break at runtime. But in Coin, the thing is that you will somehow specify that you have to provide this function in it, but it will, like, you do not have any way to check it before. I'm not sure, like, how do I say it, but thing like that, which dependency will go where it would only run at runtime, and you can run into errors which you may not have predicted. But with Dagger Hilt, at compile time, it is very clear which dependency will go where, and you cannot run into runtime errors. So, and it is also weird, it's a bit weird to say that you cannot run into runtime errors with Dagger Hilt. And then this is the main difference with, like, when you compare Dagger Hilt with Coin and with manual DI. Manual DI is pretty simple, good for very basic projects. Coin is also good, Dagger Hilt is also good, and if you want very nice control over the dependency graph in very big projects and you want to tweak the very, what you can say, abstracted out settings, you want to go into the very deep of the settings of dependency, you can use Dagger 2 too. Dagger 2 too, I'm sorry. So let's just dive into Android Studio and see what, like, how exactly Dagger Hilt works. And just to give you a brief, Dagger Hilt is a library developed by Google and it is in constant development. You can ping in, if you find some issues, you can ping in the Google guys and most probably they would help you out. So let's just jump into Android Studio, and before jumping into, I had this theme from Slides Carnival, so thank you to them too. So let's just go into Android Studio. Okay, I have the emulator right now, but I do not need it. Just a second. So this is the package structure of the app. I have named it Chicago Roboto, although the only thing this app does right now is to greet you. So before setting up, like, how do you set up Dagger Hilt? So you set up Dagger Hilt by adding this line. So this is not there, you can say add this. I would have to sync it again, but most probably it would not cause a problem because I just added a comment. And then in build Cradle, you would have to add, let's just go first here. You would have to add these many dependencies. You can just copy paste it. I would give you the link to this app of Chicago Roboto too, though it's not the app of Chicago Roboto. And you need not add this dependency. I have added this dependency just because I wanted to use a function. I will show you the function. Well, I will just show you right now which function. Just to call, I'm sorry, just to call one function, I added a dependency. That's not very, what you can say, an interesting or a very nice choice, but I did it anyway. Where is it? Just to call this function Hilt view model, I added that. So if you want to use, you can use this dependency too, but you would have to add this plugin, Dagger Hilt Android plugin, and you would have to add a plugin for Kotlin annotation processes, that is Kotlin Cap, because Dagger Hilt is a library which does a lot of work for you. If you go to the generated files, you will find, yep, these files you should not never touch them in most of the cases, because Dagger Hilt is doing a lot of work for you behind, and that is why it needs that annotation processing stuff, and they kind of create a lot of classes behind the scenes. So just appreciate, I personally appreciate Dagger Hilt for abstracting out a lot of the work which I had to do previously. So let's just, for example, let's just dive into the code now. Okay, I would say we are already into the code. So when you have added these dependencies into what you can say into your system, you have added these two. Let's assume that you have added these two, and you have this into the root level to dependency, this class path thing. So how do you specify dependency injection? Like when you have had this, you just have all the tools needed. How do you use the tools? By adding this, the thing is that you download all the tools. Like, yeah, you can say you download all the tools and now you are ready to use them. So when you are ready to use them, as a good developer following the clean code practices, you should make a new package named DI or dependency injection. If you want to type it too, you can type it. And then in DI, first of all, the first thing you do is to create a my application class. It's a very simple class. Like you can see, all I have is I've declared a class named my application, and it's a class of type application. And I will just type it again to let you guys know which kind of application is this. So it is application of type application info. And I tabbed it because I was not sure. Maybe there would be applications of more type. And then you annotate it with @hilt Android app. And that's just not it. You would have to add this name into your application name. This thing would not be done automatically. Like this is an error which I have ran into a lot of many times. You just, like when you have done dependency injection in a few of your projects, you would just make application class, then a module class, and then provide dependencies here and there. And when you run, like you say, oh man, I just forgot to add this into the application class. So it's just just a line. Just add a name to your application class. Or you can say you go into the manifest, then you go to that application tag and you add a name, and that name is the name of the file in DI. So that is .di, my application, and you always necessarily need to name it my application. So when you have that my application, where do you declare the dependencies? Like what are my dependencies? Where do I need to, or you can say send them? So you create a main module. And this is something like, this is what do you say, this is the place all the magic happens. So this is a main module kind of thing, and I'll just delete it right now. I was thinking to tell you guys this. So this is a main module. You can name this anything you want. You can name this God module. And why I'm naming it God module, you guys may have heard about God view models. I also have a God view model. A God view model is something, a kind of a view model which is used almost everywhere for a lot of screens. All of the functions, all of the state, all of the logic for so many screens as this is in one view model. It is not considered to be a good practice, but it totally depends on you. So for like in DI, what you can say in the DI package, you need to have one application, but you can have separate modules. And you would say, like, just for the sake of readability of code, or just for organizing code, why do you need one module? So I would say, let's just walk through the structure of the code in module ones, and then for sure we can, I would tell you why do you need. So you can name the class anything you want, and then each function in the class, for example, I want a dependency to provide user name, and it would take nothing as a parameter. I do not need anything right now, and it would return me a string. Okay, and I just return, what should I return? So my username is right now Priyank. I'm sorry for a string, it needs to be in parentheses. No, it's called, what do they call? In what do you call? inverted commas, yeah. So this is a very valid function. So I have wrote a function which returns a string, but if I right now run this, it would enter into errors. I just need to provide it with one annotation. Provides. Right now this is all done. If I want to call it in my view model, okay, sorry, I should not go it right now. So what is the thing? What the thing is right now is, if I want, what you can say, let's just comment it out. I will show you. So right now there's a reason why I'm commenting it down. So right now let's just focus at this function. We have a function which returns a string, and I have told you by annotating with this at the rate provides, it is gonna, like, it's gonna work. So I would just make a class to make a module for dependency injection to work, or let's just say like a module for Hilt to work on your app. You need to make a class, annotate it with at the rate module. And this is also very important. This is a thing which I wanted, like, this is a reason for which you may need to have different modules in your class apart from readability and organizational purposes, because right now I am installing it in singleton component. Singleton component means this module will live, or these dependencies will live as long as your app lives. But like, I'm using singleton component, but depending on use case you may not need to use singleton component. For example, you have a module which has dependencies which are used only once in an activity, so you can make it activity component. I guess there is something like that. Activity scope, yep, that is activity scoped, so that all your dependencies will be scoped to that activity itself. There is activity retained too, yeah, there is activity retained scope too. So those dependencies will be scoped to your activities, but even when that activity is destroyed, this object will not be destroyed. Whereas in activity scope, all those dependencies which are, what you can say, related or mapped to your activity, when the activity is destroyed and it is out of memory, this the instance of your modules and your dependencies will also be taken out of memory so that it could be used for some other meaningful purposes. But right now we are going to focus on singleton component. So these two things, you need to make a class. You have to be had it annotated with install in, and then you have to annotate it as a module. Then you just have to need a function. Then you just need a function which is telling you username, and it has to have a return type, and right now it is returning string. So how the hell do I call it in, what you can say, in any place I want to? So for example, I wanted a new view model. What I do is I first of all annotate that view model with at the rate Hilt view model, so that, you can say, the library knows that this is a view model which would need to have a dependency. And then, like, it is kind of cluttered now. I will just show you how would it look if we were not injecting anything. Yep. So this would look a normal, like a normal view model will look like this, and clean view model. So like, we have to inject a dependency in it right now. How do I do that? You just saw the code. I will just write it once again. Okay, constructor, and I guess I had an inject in it. I'm sorry, like, I'm new to this system, new Mac, I'm sorry. And also I just forgot that was what do you say, miscellaneous excuse that I'm new to this Mac, but I'm new to this Mac. That's just, what you can say, that's a valid thing. So we would have I'm sorry, just let me clean it up. It is taking a lot of time. I'm sorry. I should not have written it. If I would have written it from scratch, that would have been better. But if we do not have, like, this is a clean view model. I'm sorry for the time I just consumed. So this is a clean view model, and if you want to add, like, if you want to inject something into it, you will simply annotate it with wow. And this is name it. I will username and subtype string, and I'll just use string here. Yep, username, I'm sorry, I just called it string. Yeah, so this would run now, like this will run like cream now, I would say. Yeah, the thing is that how would the library work? I would just tell you, it would go to the main module, see, okay, I have a function which is returning an integer right now, and I have a function which is returning a string right now. It would know, and then when this view model is made, an instance of view model is called. See, okay, if this is demanding for something, like it is demanding for a dependency which is of string type, it will just look into the module, see, like right now you just have one kind of, what you can say, yeah, one kind of dependency which is of string type, so it will just map it to here, and right now if I run it, it would be printed here. Let's just see what is my name, and while it is printed, I'll just give you a very quick overview of the code. Like in the greeting function, like this is a sample compose activity, and in the greeting function I just have a view instance of a view model called by this is a compose function. That is why, like, this is a function which can be called in compose only, and this is the reason why I added that dependency. What it basically does is, behind the scenes, it is creating an instance of that view model, and then in that view model I'm having this variable name st, and this should contain that username, and I'm providing it to the text. So let's just see what comes up in my emulator right now. Let's wait for it. It is taking more time than required. So it's telling me hello Priyank. So I would say it is working great. So we have that one module which is returning username, and we have it here. But the string things, you can, like, this is it, you may do whatever you want to DI, but there are things like, now I want to say, you would say, like, what do we need extra? I told you that it is more than just passing in stuff. It's like scoping activities, sharing activities. You may think, like, why is this singleton? The thing is that, for example, yeah, you have a retrofit instance. I did not show you because it would take more time. I just wanted to focus on the concepts itself. So if you had a retrofit instance here, and you are providing that retrofit instance in different view models, so right now, without the singleton thing, whenever this function is called, for example, this dependency is called in 5 different places, every time it would create a new instance of, what you can say, the object of the string. And for example, if you had retrofit, you do not want a new instance every time. What you would want is that every time, like the first time you're creating a new instance, and every other time you're getting that same instance passed on to every time, or every place it is asked. First time it is asked from, say, activity A, the main activity, you create a new instance, provide it to it, but you have that instance there. Now every time any other activity or the same activity is, what you can say, asking for that, you just provide that same thing. And that is why we have this singleton here. If you do not have the singleton, every time you ask for this dependency, a new object or a new instance of it will be created and passed. And like, I just created this too, so because the first time I ran into, like, the first time I had to use dependency injection was when I had to do this thing. I'm not sure if there's a way you can get shared preferences in view model. So this is what forced me into learning dependency injection, and it's pretty useful too. You can just provide in shared preferences at any place you want. And I just remembered there's one thing you need to keep in mind. Sorry. Oh, you have to, like, for the Android components in normal classes, if you find something like this, you do not need this, but for the Android components like services, like fragments or like activities, you need to annotate them with something like this. For activities, you need to annotate them with Android entry point, and in fragments you would also need to annotate with Android entry point too. So I guess it's pretty clear. Summing it up, dependency injection is just passing in stuff. You need to share dependencies. That is why we have so many libraries in place. You need to scope them to like singleton, like activity scoped, singleton scope, singleton component scoped, and then you need some annotations. You declare a my application. You name that my application in the manifest, and then you declare your dependencies in main module, and you then just map it wherever you want. Now, like if I had the time, I would show you. I guess we still have a bit of time here, so I'll just show you if you have similar kind of dependencies, because right now you're having this kind of dependency and it will read like it would run into an error if you're in it right now, because the Dagger just cannot figure out, the Hilt cannot, this library just cannot figure out if I have like which dependency to provide here. Both of a type string, and I just gotta duplicate. String is bound multiple times, duplicate kind of thing. And I'll just tell you what is the solution for this. It is something like this. You can name your dependencies tp1. You can name this too. You can name almost anything. And whenever you want to use this, you can use this. It's all up to you. Like whenever you're calling this, just ask that I need this name thing. And I guess my time is up. You can always, like, I would be available for a live Q&A. Thank you for the presentation. Like, thank you for hearing to the presentation. I'm looking for a whole lot of feedback. I guess it may not have lived to your expectation, and if it has, I'm really glad to know that. Just give me all the feedback you have. Just shoot at me all the questions you have. And even if you do not have anything to tell me, I could also use to have a chat with you. Thank you.